Hello students, today in your algebra class we're going to be working on solving quadratics. So before we begin, let's try solving these two quick warm-up problems. Hopefully you've paused your screen and now you're just checking answers. Square root of 128, we're going to break that down into a factor tree. So, if we're not quite sure, we could do 4 times 32. And 4 could be broken down a little bit further, and so could 32. So this turns out to be 2 times 2. 32 could be 2 times 16. We're going to break down 16 a little bit more. 2 times 8. That's 2 times 4. And hopefully for the final time, this should be 2 times 2. So just to double check, we're going to circle all of our fruits, if you will, from our factor tree. The ones that are simplified as far down are the ones that are at the bottom of the branching, just so we can keep tabs on how many 2's we actually have. So here we have the square root. We have the square root of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 2's. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 7 times. Now what we're going to do is go through and circle the pairs that we have. So here's a pair, here's a pair, and there's a pair. So because we have 3 pairs of 2's, we can pull 1 out for every pair that we have. So that's 2 times 2 times 2, because there are 3 2's. However, we still have the 2's left over. So we have 1 2 left inside the square root, so we're going to bring that along. So 2. And then just to confirm, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Our final answer should be 8. Square root of 2. Factor for number 2 is, because it's a difference of 2 squares, we have x minus 2 and x plus 2. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to find the roots or solutions of a quadratic equation. Now just a reminder, the quadratic equation should look like ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, in this section, we're going to be finding the zeros or the roots or the solutions of a quadratic. Keep in mind, zeros, roots, and solutions are all synonyms, just to say this is where the solutions are for our graph or for our parabola. Now, if you look at the picture below, it gives us 3 different graphs. The first graph on the left shows that it intersects or crosses the x-axis twice. Crosses at -2 and 2. So in this instance, your zeros or your roots or your solutions are at 2 and -2. In the middle graph, it crosses the graph once. So we say that it has one solution and it's at 0. For the third picture on the right, notice how it does not cross the x-axis at all. It has no x-intercepts, therefore there is no solution. And these are all important because when we did our marshmallow launch, the time that we started and the time it hit the ground, those were all considered roots because that's when it would have crossed our x-axis, or our ground, so to speak. So, let's try a couple quick examples. For number 1, it's 2x squared minus 8 equals 0. So we're going to go through and we're going to solve for x. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add 8 to both sides. And we're left with 2x squared equals 8. Then we're going to divide 2 to both sides. We have x squared equals 4. And just to reiterate, the opposite of a square is a square root. So in order for us to get the x by itself, we need to get rid of the square. And the way that we do that is by doing the opposite. So the opposite of a square, again, is a square root. And when you take the square root of an item, so the opposite, so a square and a square root, they cancel each other out. And then when you square root an item, it's very important that you add the plus or minus sign. So this should be plus or minus the square root of 4. So we have x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 4, so x equals plus or minus 2. So our two solutions would be plus 2 and minus 2. Example 2, we have x squared plus 5 equals 0, so we're going to subtract 5 to both sides. We're left with x squared equals negative 5. So when we take the square root of, or to solve for x, we need a square root to get the x by itself. So we get x equals plus or minus the square root of negative 5. Now, notice that in the square root we have a negative number. We cannot have a negative square root. Therefore, we have no solution. Okay, last but not least is example 3. And this should be fairly easy. We want to solve for k, so we need to get rid of the square. So we square root both sides. We get k is equal to plus or minus the square root of 49. Therefore, k is equal to plus or minus 7. Now it's your turn. Try solving these 3 problems. When you're done, add these onto your notes. That's all for now. See you guys next time.